Hey everybody, welcome back. It's Nick Bernstein here again with another video on how to, create an IT career, get up to speed in current technologies, approach changing career fields, a bunch of random kind of stuff that's all sort of generally tech and IT related, but with a bit of a focus on career stuff. So if you're new to the channel, that's what this is about generally. In this particular video, right? Nothing fancy about it. In this particular video, we're going to be talking about a question from a viewer from an r/Linux admin comment on reddit.com. So first things first, welcome back. I hope you enjoy these videos. If you do, please remember to give them a like. If you're new to the channel and you'd like to see more of these, please feel free to subscribe. If you would be so inclined, sharing the videos with other folks either on Facebook or Reddit or Twitter or other forums would be greatly appreciated, since I am very new to this and just kind of building out a channel. So if these are things that you like and you want to go ahead and support the channel, that's a great way to go ahead and do it, and I'd greatly appreciate it if you do. So in this particular question, we're going to go ahead and look at a comment here from someone named Dexter Murdoch on our Linux admin. I'm going to assume that this is a gentleman just based on the name from the person. And they're saying, I subscribe to your channel to watch later videos. Great work. As a suggestion, it would be interesting to talk about Linux certifications. And one topic that would interest me the most is how Linux for the people with more networking background than dev background, my case. And kind of, I'm sort of assuming either this is how is the demand for those skills, for demand for those people, and also I guess certification sort of specifically, are they sort of valuable for that? So a bit of a sort of generally worded question, but I'll try to go interpret it as we kind of go through this. They go on to say, I enjoy writing shell scripts, but I'm kind of lazy with programming languages like C, Python, Ruby, etc. I've been working with Windows for years, and now I'm diving really fast into Linux world. Got his LPIC 1 recently. Congratulations, that's awesome. But I don't know if the lack of advanced programming skills would keep me from getting a decent job as a Linux sysadmin, or if knowing enough bash is enough. So the too long didn't read on this is, having advanced programming skills will not prevent you from getting a job. However, it is going to put a cap on the level of jobs that you can get, and also the specific kinds of jobs that you can get. So one of the things to be aware of, one of the things to realize is that you've got some specialization here. You know networking, you know Windows, right? So you're going to have some options, but they're going to be tailored to jobs where those are valuable skills. So the first thing I wanted to go mention is to have a good job, I'll say, in the Linux kind of environment. You're going to need to have the ability to go do Linux stuff. Plus, I think you're going to need to at least have one additional skill. So networking, I think, is a good one. Development, so the ability to go program in those languages, as you were sort of mentioning. Python would be the big one that I would sort of point people towards. Perl potentially. I wouldn't do Ruby at this point. I think it's a good language, but I think the demand is dropping a little bit for it. C is always useful, but I think Python would be very, very helpful. And if you're somebody who can script already, I think that it won't be too much of a jump for you to move over to Python and do some stuff there. It used to be, and unfortunately it's a little bit in less demand, it used to be that Perl was the second language of choice for a lot of people coming from a Unix background. They started with shell scripting and they moved over to Perl. And I think it's a little bit sad that the demand for Perl has gone down. One of the big reasons for me is that I really like Perl. I enjoy writing the Perl language because it feels so much like shell scripting. A lot of people have a lot of complaints about Perl, but they'll go and write PowerShell stuff. And if you look at PowerShell, a lot of it is clearly derived from Perl. That's not saying that they're exactly the same. They do have a lot of differences. You know, PowerShell is object oriented from the get go, where Perl, that was a little bit sort of retrofitted. So that's kind of a thing. But yeah, I think having another language would be useful. Perl might be an easy one for you to pick up if you're already doing shell scripting. But I think Python will probably be pretty easy too. You also have the ability to kind of focus more on security, storage, which is an area that I think a lot of people who are new to tech don't realize is a specialty that exists. Specializing in enterprise storage is a very useful thing. I, for example, have a big focus in my career on NetApp, although I've done other storage stuff as well. So I've done, EMC and HP and other kind of enterprise storage vendors. And that's an interesting area because typically, until you're working, you don't have a lot of exposure to those things. And even in a lot of environments where you're sort of the smaller shops, you're not going to get exposure to them. So by having that on your resume, it opens you up to a lot of more enterprise companies where they're specifically looking for people who know how to do, fiber channel or iSCSI or things like that, or just, NFS at a large scale with an enterprise vendor. So that's something to go look at. Another option is backups. So being a backup administrator. And being a backup administrator is probably going to have the least requirements out of all of the sort of additional pieces. So if you're somebody who has a specialization in Commvault or Net Backup or Veeam or any of the kind of the backup software that's out there that's used in the enterprise, those positions are always in demand. The unfortunate piece about it is these positions are generally A, lower paying, and B, kind of a grind, which is why they oftentimes are looking for people in backup roles. Historically, people backed up to tape, right? Now that's changed a lot. People are now backing up disk to disk as sort of the default mechanism. There's a lot of trends toward backing up to the cloud, which I think is a really great use case for doing cloud stuff. Even if you're predominantly a more traditional environment, having cloud backups is really, really useful. But traditionally, people had to back up to tape. And one of the really annoying pieces about being a backup admin is you had to deal with tape rotations, you had to deal with bad media, you had to deal with checking these. They were physical things. So a lot of people would have a tape library that would auto-rotate, but you would also have to go ahead and take those tapes and get them off-site. So there would oftentimes be, an element where you would be going to wherever the tape library was located, rotating the tapes manually every day. So a lot of people don't love working as a backup admin. And it's also a very specific role where you don't get a lot of exposure to other stuff. So it's not necessarily a great one for the career. But if you're looking for something that's kind of a junior position, but you want to leverage it into a little bit higher because you can get a little bit higher salary with a backup admin, that might be a good one to go. But just be aware that you're probably going to want to make a horizontal move at some point so you can then further your career. And that may be done a couple different ways. One of the classic ways to go do that is you become a backup admin and then you make a move. So it's sort of not quite like a horizontal move, but maybe like a little bit horizontal moving up as well. So diagonal, I guess, move to a storage admin. And then storage touches all sorts of different stuff. So that might be, encompassing virtualization, infrastructure, things like that. Virtualization is probably one I should have put on here as well. So there's a bunch of different areas where you can go ahead and have some expertise, but you mentioned that you have some networking background. So that's a specialization already, but additionally, your Windows background is super relevant to being a Linux admin. Gone are the days when the world is completely siloed, right? So it used to be that you were a Windows shop or you were a Linux shop, and that's the end of the story. It's not like that anymore. There's plenty of people that run, IT services in-house that are on the Windows technology stack, Office 365, things like that. They do a great job. Nothing wrong with them. Active Directory. It's a great way to go ahead and manage a domain of trust. Nothing wrong with it at all. So if you have existing skills that you can leverage on that side of things, that's awesome, right? You can go ahead and pair that up with Linux in a really good way. What I would do is I would look for opportunities where you can go put these things together. So when I'm putting my resume together, I might be thinking about technologies that I would emphasize on my resume that are specific to environments where I have more than one thing running. So let's say Samba, for example. Samba, if anybody is not aware, is a open source implementation of Windows file sharing, or CIFS, Common Internet File System. And it works really, really, really well. But it's a little bit complicated. So if you're somebody who is a pure Windows admin and you've never touched Linux before, you might have no idea how to go implement that. But if all of a sudden we get this new guy in our environment who's completely comfortable in both Linux and Windows, whoa, that's really nice. We can go ahead and be able to put those things together. So you're looking at where can you add value in an environment? Well, you got a thing right here, right? You're already a Windows admin. You already get that experience. You've got networking on top of that, and you're a Linux guy. Yeah, you can definitely get a job. The one thing I would note though is being aware of the general industry trends. And one of the big general industry trends is things are moving to more of a DevOps centric kind of thing, right? So instead of having dedicated system admins, you have sort of people doing a hybrid role where they're doing development and then they're going to be able to create somewhere where they can deploy things themselves, as opposed to having to go through a traditional ops team to go do that. There's also a big push towards serverless computing. If you look at like Amazon's Lambda, for example, Lambda is a way to go ahead and deploy code that's running basically functions from different programming languages, procedures from different programming languages on their own. You don't need to worry about where the thing is running. You don't need to worry if this is in a VM or an instance. You just say, go run this, give me the results, and it does it. And that could be, a Python Flask application, or that could be PHP, or that could be Java. It runs at a bunch of different things. So going in that direction, I think having the ability to go develop and write code is going to, future-proof your career a bit. And I think, honestly, all you really need is you need a project. You need a fun project to go implement in Python, the same way that you get to play with stuff in Bash. And I'd just go play around. I'd go look for some areas where you can kind of come up with a fun project for you to go do. In a previous video, I mentioned, depending on when I upload things, I'm not sure about the order. I talked about calculating your hourly rate. That's a great little sort of mini project. You could do that in Bash because that's what you're really comfortable in. And then maybe after you've done that in Bash, now you get all the logic done, translate to Python. And that's a good way to go learn a language, is just translate, as opposed to, concentrate on one component as opposed to both components. You don't necessarily need to go ahead and figure out the logic for something. You just port. You port that application from, your Bash script to a Python script. And that can get you a lot of the way towards doing things. So some of the other stuff that I wanted to kind of look at here was if I go pull up a browser and we go ahead and do over like salary.com, and we look for Linux administrator, we can go ahead and see that Linux administrator in this case is 72,000 to 103,000 roughly. So if we go ahead and look at this, it's got some sort of base stuff, kind of where you're at and sort of all this kind of thing. So you're looking at your relevant experience. So if we go back and so we get no experience, obviously that's going to drop down your salary. If you do not have a degree, let's say you get high school and certificate, that's going to drop you down. If you go ahead and report to a manager, so you can go ahead and sort of figure out, this kind of stuff in terms of calculating your salary report. So salary.com is a really useful one for this kind of stuff. And if I remember correctly, what you can go do is you can go combine it with other skills. Ba, 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 ba. All right. Well, I'm not going to go ahead and kind of go crazy in here, but if you sort of dig through these things, I think that one of them, maybe it might be Glassdoor. Yeah, I think this might be. So here they're saying 78. So one of the things to note is that, depending on which site you look at, it's got a slightly different sort of range of what they think. So they're sort of estimating around 78, and they're going from 53 on the low side to 106 on the other side. And a big piece of that is where are you? If you're in Georgia, the cost of living is significantly lower than where I live in Los Angeles. So the pay rates here are going to be significantly higher because you need to be able to afford a house, right? And that's kind of how it is. So you can go look at things like industries. You can go ahead and look at things like years of experience. And I believe this one allows you to sort of add skills to it. So if we go, let me click on Linux Systems Administrator and close this out. And we'll say 90293, which is a town near me, because this is the internet. Let's see. Do a search. We can go ahead and see some kind of things. So here they're saying it's about 94,000. And well, all right. So I'm not going to go crazy on this, but there's one of these salary estimator utilities allows you to go put in sort of subspecialties. So you can go combine Linux administrator plus networking and look at that. So there's a bunch of different ways to go look at these. The other thing that you might want to go do is look for your certification. So here we have LPIC-1, and this is just Indeed.com. I'm going to go do a search for this. Yeah, I think DICE might be more general. LPIC. There's a bunch of job sites out there. I'm not in any means endorsing any of them. So we'll say Los Angeles. And we'll do a search for that. And you can go see that we do, in fact, have some results here for the LPIC-1 exam. Now, one of the things that you will note is on these results, most of these are coming back as like service desk, junior QA positions, things like that. And that's because, honestly, the LPIC certification is not maybe the most useful one that I'd recommend. If we go ahead and look for like SUSE certified administrator, let's see if we can go find any of these. You can see that these start getting into more systems administrator kind of stuff, things like that. If we go look for RHCE certified, or RHCA, Red Hat certified administrator, RHCE. Forget their branding for these. Red Hat certified administrator. Right. You'll be able to go ahead and see these. So there's some of these that are kind of coming up that we'll go ahead and see. Red Hat certified systems administrator. There we go. No, all right. It's going to vary depending on your environment, right? So in some environments, they're going to care a lot about Red Hat certifications. In some environments, they're going to care about other certifications. But what you'll see is that there's not as many help desk, not as many overall jobs, but not as many help desk kind of jobs. If we go ahead and look for something like Linux networking, we'll go ahead and see some. So now all of a sudden we see a lot more kind of things come up. If we go ahead and look for like Red Hat, Microsoft, networking. Now we're going to get some fairly interesting jobs. And what I think you want to go do is you just want to go look at a bunch of different listings and do this before you start spending a bunch of time in certifications and look what they're looking for. So this is a DevOps admin position, probably not for you, being that you don't want to go do a lot of, programming kind of stuff. But if we go select this, you can go ahead and see that we're looking for a DevOps engineer who has Linux, Unix servers, experience building them, with VMware, Azure, AWS, must have scripting experience, skilled required Windows, Linux, or Unix, don't hesitate, blah, 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 race, all that kind of stuff. So there's a bunch of different stuff here that they're sort of talking about. So this is pretty straightforward, in terms of the things that they're looking for. If we go look for, I'll just do a search for Linux administrator. We'll make it simple. So we'll have that come up. So I'm going to go ahead and look at this. I'm going to go grab a couple examples of these Linux admin jobs. So this through Cybercoders, which I think is a sort of a consulting company where you get hired by them and then they contract you out to other people. So minimum required skills: Linux administration, 24/7 production environment, web server admin, e-commerce, 5+ years Linux experience. So this is probably more of a mid to senior role. Apache Tomcat, network, load balancers, standardized SCSI, NetApp preferred, blah, 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 blah. And, this is a fairly decent, hourly rate. So looking at, a little bit over 100,000 a year kind of thing. So this is potentially an interesting gig. So, what you could do is you could go look through these, kind of things. So, and basically see what skills they're listing out. Now they're listing a lot of skills here, and the good chance is that you probably won't have all of them. But, you can get up to speed on something like HA proxy really, really, really simple. That's a really easy application. So that might be one that's worth looking at. And what you can do is you could take a listing like this and try to go figure out, if this is a job that you wanted, how can I get close to this, right? So, you've got Bash scripting, you don't have Python, you don't have Perl, but you might have LVM stuff already. So you just go through, and I think if you meet at least 50% of the qualifications of a job, you're fair game to contact them and see if they are interested in you. So this is another one. This was posted a week ago. This is looking for another job downtown LA. This is providing tier 3 support. So for a mix of Linux, Unix servers, Exchange, boom. AD, boom. Cisco networking, boom. You would be a candidate for this job, right? So, this could be something that you might be a candidate for, especially given that a lot of things at the protocol level are universal. If you understand how SMTP works, right? If you understand how DNS works, if you've done Active Directory, you've played with LDAP. So, IIS, Exchange, well, those are specific to Windows, but LDAP, that's cross-platform. That's part of Active Directory. So, when you look at these kind of things, you may already very well be qualified for these jobs. So what I might do if I had experience on the Windows side and I had experience on the networking side, and it's hard to exactly say because I don't know what your job history is specifically, but what I might look at doing is finding some certifications that specifically speak to those skills. So, if you have 10 years working as a network admin, maybe you don't need to go do this, but if you're relatively new to things, one of the things you might consider doing is, getting a Cisco CCNA certification. You've got your LPIC1, right? On its own, maybe not the most in-demand certification, but it shows that you have some Linux experience. So that can get you in the door. You might want to go couple that with a MCSE certification, something on the Windows side, and now you've got those sort of three kind of pillars that you can sort of build things on. So that's kind of the approach that I would take. Is absolutely you do have some stuff that would qualify you for a Linux position. I would down the road definitely spend some time, learning maybe like Python or Perl as a way to just sort of make sure that down the road, if the trend goes in that direction, where we start to see more serverless computing and things like that, that you are prepared for that already, right? So you might want to punt that a couple years down the road, that's fine. Especially if you're getting into things right now, what you want to go do is you want to look for the skills that are going to set you up for the job that you want to have right now, right? So prioritize those skills. But in a couple of years, 6 months from here, once you get your job, once you sort of in the role that you want to be in, well, then you can start to look on taking on a little bit more development stuff and just kind of future-proofing things kind of from there. So I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you guys for watching if you did. And I guess you did because you're still here. So for those of you guys that have watched it all the way through here, I want to remind you that I did hit 100 subscribers on my channel. Woohoo! Pretty recently. And to celebrate that, I decided to give away a Raspberry Pi Zero, which if you're not familiar with it, is a tiny little device about half the size of this little Altoids tin that I've got. Really, really, really tiny. That is a full-blown computer. So it's not a very fast one, but it's kind of a neat little device. You can go run Linux on it. You can go ahead and fit the thing in your pocket. It's kind of cool. All sorts of fun stuff, little projects you can go ahead and do with it. So I thought that would be a fun little giveaway, especially given that a lot of the people on this channel are trying to get into technology as a career. And if I give you a little Raspberry Pi Zero, you get no excuse because you have a lab. Right? And I'll tell you, it was a lot faster than the one I kind of started off with when I was a kid just learning Linux. So it's 300 megahertz or whatever it is more than capable of learning a lot of different stuff on it, especially if you set it up as a little server. So that's a little giveaway. I'm going to be running that until the end of the year. So you get a little bit more time to go ahead and participate in that. If you want to go participate in that, go click on the 100 subscriber giveaway video, which I will try to remember to link to in the description. If not, you can go find that just on my channel generally and make a comment there. I think I specified that people should fill out a form, but I forgot to link it on the on the video. So probably what I'll do is I'll go look for the comments where people say that, yes, I'm interested. And then what I'll do is I'll just put them into a little script where we go pick a random winner. And that's how we'll go do that. So thank you guys for watching. Like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff if you feel so inclined. And if you would like to get that Raspberry Pi Zero, make sure you go down and comment on that video. And we'll see you in the next one, hopefully with some more interesting career advice that you guys can use to sort of further your career and get into Linux administration, which is fantastic. So I think it's a great career for a lot of people. Not for everybody, but for a lot of people, it's a great career. It's been fantastic for me, and I hope it'll be fantastic for you. So, yeah, see you in the next one.